You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hi, and welcome to Enterprise-Splaining, the podcast where we explain Star Trek Enterprise to each other and to you. I'm Maria, and these are my co-hosts, Bill.
Yo!
And Jamie.
Hey.
Today, we are going to be talking about the Star Trek Enterprise Season 1 episode, Rogue Planet. However, I'm the only person here who's actually watched it, so it's my job to explain to my co-hosts what happened on this episode. But before we get to that, let's first talk a bit about last week's episode. Last week, Jamie told us about the episode Fusion. Bill and I were finally able to watch it. So, Bill, now that we've seen it, anything that you noticed that you'd like to talk about or add to Jamie's thoughts from last week?
Well, I mean, it was a weird episode. I mean, first of all, it's like we got to have a discussion about how this show treats T'Pol. And I know that it's been an ongoing thing. But the weird part is, at the very end, it gets obviously super creepy. And they shoot it like this is a drug video from the 1980s. Because the guy is super sweaty. They shoot him at an angle. And also his eyes are slightly pink. And it looks like he's having withdrawal. He's trying to tell her, no, give in to your emotions. Follow them. And this episode treats emotions like it's a drug. Like
right.
Emotions, not even once, T'Pol. It's going to destroy you. To the point where it gets so freaking ridiculous. It's so on the nose that her bad Catholic schoolgirl experience is she sneaks out of the compound and goes to a jazz club where she listens to the devil's music. But it was very, very weird. And I found it, obviously we've been down this path before, both with like Vulcans and emotions, but also there was the episode of Next Gen where Troy was assaulted via telepathy.
Yeah, that's what it reminded me of for sure.
And two things about that. It's just very weird that this show is kind of setting up the idea that there is only one correct way for an entire race of people to live.
Right.
Which is kind of wild when you think about it. It gets into that sort of like, if you're going to be American, you have to do this, this, this. You have to be in a religious group. You have to, buy a house in the suburbs. And you have to do that if you want to be, and that's the only way to live. And also it was really weird that because in the episode where Troy was assaulted, she got to defend herself against the person who was attacking her. And in this, it's fucking Archer goads the guy in and then pulls a gun on him. So the other thing that I didn't like about this episode is they introduced the nerdy Vulcan who is super curious about and knows everything he knows about Earth people is wrong on many levels. So here's my question. Are the Vulcans straight up racists? Because it seems like every time they say anything about another race, it is wrong.
And shitty.
And shitty. The Klingons, they just want to die. That's all they want to do. The Andorians are this completely warlike people, which is okay. That's why we spy on them.
Yeah, it's really bizarre.
Is this not how the Vulcans are in other series?
No, I don't think so. Not like this. Like, the Vulcans are always a little, like...
standoffish
and a little patronizing. They're always a little like, we know better, but usually they do. And like, it's really unusual for them to be so wrong so often.
Like, this guy is super interested in Earthlings, whom the Vulcans have known for 100 years, and he thinks that football is about killing the quarterback, and that humans are just fucking 24 hours a day, all year round.
See, that stuff didn't bother me as much, because that is actually how that works out. Like, people who have never, like, if you've never met somebody from another country and all you have is like what you've heard in passing, those types of things can happen. Absolutely.
Sure.
I mean, compared to Vulcans, humans are fucking all the time.
Well,
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
They do it once every 7 years. Like,
Yeah, that's
I'm
fair.
sure that they're looking at humans and being like, wow.
my point is that they're supposed to be super logical and super scientific. It's been 100 years. They should have like Wikipedia articles about humans that he can read. But it just
Something.
seems like everything that a Vulcan says about another race is provably wrong.
That's fair. Yeah.
Except for the humans being violent, which is completely true in this series.
The whole thing. This was a heavy episode, and I think Jamie did a great job of kind of talking about the issues in it. So rather than really rehashing any of that, what I did was I put together another episode of things Stephen and I yelled while watching this episode while high. All right. Well, the first was from Stephen in the one of the early scenes where Archer pulls out the textbook that he shows to Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen was like, "What is ATOS?" Because it said A to Z.
That's on him, I think.
While high. Please no.
That's some Beeger level shit there. It says Atos. What is this?
To be fair, the way the font is, it's all caps. It is kind of weird. I think they're Spock's by choice, which was what we decided the Vulcans with emotions were, because they were they were exposing themselves to what Spock tries to fight all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they smile and eat chicken doesn't mean they're cool.
Yeah, the way Archer immediately bonded with them and was like, they're so cool. They're my buddies.
Immediately.
T'Pol sucks. She should be more like them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then going back to the Trip's Vulcan pal, that guy is like if Michael Cera was a Vulcan.
Yeah.
which is very true. He also very much reminded me of Veer from Babylon 5. He just had that vibe and like that sort of bumbling.
Only thing he was missing was Coke bottle glasses that had the Scotch tape in the middle of the
Absolutely, absolutely. The only other one that I have is why are we in Jazz Blade Runner? When we
I'm sorry. That whole dream looked like a perfume commercial. I was expecting her.
I told you it was all like blurry and indistinct.
Yeah, it was really weird.
It took me a long time to write that part of the script because trying to describe it was really hard.
Jazz.
The jazz music was creepy.
The jazz was weird. Maybe that was intentional. Like it was because it was her remembering, so it was weird. But just other notes I had with the Michael Cera guy. I can't remember his name now. Cause, something like that.
Cov.
Was this a really super? And maybe you mentioned this, Jamie. Is this a really super clumsy gay allegory? Because that's kind of what it felt like. Like, the guy was like, I can't tell my parents or my dad what's happening. He doesn't understand. This is how I feel. This is who I am.
I definitely saw it as not necessarily a gay metaphor, but something similar. His parents are not accepting of who he is as a person and his life choices.
Right. Right.
I had thought of that, but it doesn't quite fit because this is definitely a choice for him. It's not just like the way he is.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. And then Archer's response / jealousy about T'Pol was really weird.
I hated Archer in this episode. Like, I left this episode hating Archer more than I've ever hated Archer. I don't want to hate Archer.
I don't want to hate him.
Scott Bakula is so charismatic. I really want to like him. And I came out of this episode like, I can never look at him the same again.
Welcome to my world. Absolutely. And he never at any point even tried to, he owed her an apology. And that never happened.
Yeah.
Like, he was wrong. He realized he was wrong. He attempted
put
to
her in
fix it,
danger.
but he put her in that situation and he never once apologized to her. And that's shitty.
This show has been treating T'Pol badly
So
the
badly.
entire time, and it really reached a new level of shittiness with their attitude of, this uptight bitch just needs to loosen up and learn how to... And this was by far the worst of it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
This made me angry at Archer and the show.
Yeah,
Really
it's not
shitty.
clear to me that the scene, the White Knight scene with Archer, to me, it came across as the actual writers of the show putting Archer as like the hero in that
Right.
scene.
Absolutely,
I don't
they
think
were.
that the writers of this episode realize how that
No, they
everything that
definitely
Archer
did
had
not.
done throughout the episode actually paralleled everything that Tolaris did.
Yeah. It would actually have been really lovely if they had actually pointed that out, but I think it was completely unintentional that that's how that worked out. Like they never ever, and then the only other thing I had about that was just a little fun fact. The guy who played Tavin, I recognized right away. He's Robert Pine,
Yes,
who
he
is
is.
Chris Pine's dad.
Wait, what?
Yeah, which is I thought was
Wow.
super cute. Yeah.
I
love
know
that.
him because he was the sergeant on Chips,
On
which
Chips!
I
That's-
watched.
Yep, that's what I was like. Where do I know him? Where do I know him? Oh, it's Chips.
I didn't even know Chris Pine was nepotism. I didn't
Had
know
a
he
date,
was
had
Yeah, Nepo baby.
famous father.
Another Nepo baby. Anything else? Did you have anything else on that one, Bill?
No, bad episode.
No, I would like to move on from that episode forever.
Let's move
Never
on because
think about it again.
I wish I could tell you this is going to be a really nice palate cleanser. I mean, I guess it
no.
is in terms of it's neutral. All right, now that we've got that out of the way, it's time to talk about this week's episode. Computer, what episode will we be talking about this week?
Rogue Planet. While exploring an uncharted planet, Enterprise crew members encounter a group of aliens who are hunting down indigenous creatures for recreation.
Okay, so now it's time for Two Truths and a Lie. I am going to tell you two truths and a lie about this episode, and you can guess which one is the lie. You ready?
I have never been more ready.
Okay, number one. Archer and Malcolm get very competitive about Eagle Scout badges.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm imagining that they're trying to win them in this episode, and I'm super excited about it, but it's probably a discussion of the ones they already had. Okay.
Yeah, they're not going to be I feel like they're way too old to get Eagle Scout badges. To be like currently trying to get their Eagle
I
Scout
put
badge.
nothing past this show.
The crew inadvertently eat a sentient species.
Oh my God.
I wanted to say they are cannibals, but then I got into the whole like it isn't really cannibalism if you're eating your own if you're not eating your own kind,
No,
and
it's-
so it would, but they inadvertently eat a sentient species.
Inadvertently is the key word here. Okay.
And number 3, Archer recites poetry to Trip.
These are all really, this is a really hard one because the first one I was like, that's true. And then the second one I was like, that's true. But then the third one I also believe it. Like, I believe all of these are true.
I did confirm there is a lie in there.
I'm going to go with they inadvertently eat a sentient species. I think that's a bridge too far for this show.
Okay, Jamie?
I'm going to go with the poetry one.
All right. We'll see soon enough if you're right. Let's get started. Cold open. Archer is sitting very uncomfortably in the captain's chair. He's like sitting straight up and right on the edge of his seat, which is a pose usually reserved for T'Pol.
Is he doing T'Pol's like leg crossed, like perch?
Not leg crossed, but right
Okay.
on the very edge with a very straight back. He looks confused and then bored and then impatient. And then he finally says, "We couldn't do this in my ready room." And as they zoom out, we see he's actually posing for a photo that Trip is taking. Trip says that he has to be in the captain's chair because he's posing for a photo that will go up at Starfleet Command and that every recruit is going to see.
You'd think they would have done that before they left Earth with like an actual Starfleet photographer?
Well,
have time.
they are. I don't know. They want him on in who the hell knows. But Trip keeps kind of giving Archer directions, like look that way, swivel your chair 30 degrees, and Archer's getting more and more annoyed. At one point, Trip asks T'Pol to kill one of the monitors that is causing a glare, and she glares at him even worse than that monitor. Like, oh my god.
So, make love to the camera. Show me your passion. Throw your hair back.
Exactly. So the three of them, they bicker and banter a bit. The photo is actually going to be turned into a painting by an artist in Oakland, which, shout out, Bay Area represent.
What?
And as they are talking about this, Malcolm interrupts because he's picked up a planet on sensors. They're confused because there aren't any systems in this area, and T'Pol says it's a rogue planet, a planet that is broken out of its orbit. And of course, they have to go check it out. Archer says to lay in a course and theme song. Which brings us to Jamie's Diane Warren update of the week. Jamie, what do you have?
So my first thing is, remember that documentary about Diane Warren that I told you about
Of course.
a couple months
I do.
ago? That documentary is now going around to some other film festivals, and she was recently at Nashville Film Fest, and she posted a photo from the red carpet where she wore a plaid shirt, and on the back it just says, "Howdy, bitches."
Yes. She's amazing.
And then in the comments, she said that the movie is going to be coming out next year.
Oh.
So
All right. So we
Cool.
can see it soon, maybe.
I tried to see if I could find any other news about that. Like, did somebody pay for the rights to it? Like,
Mhm.
when's it going to come out? I couldn't find anything. The only thing we have is her saying that the documentary is going to come out next year.
Okay.
So excited for whenever next year is.
Yeah, whatever that
Really
happens.
could be
that
anything.
will be a very, very special episode of Enterprise Splaining.
But in other Diane Warren news, okay, so this is going to sound like it's not Diane Warren news, but I promise
That's okay.
we'll
Alright.
get to how it relates to Diane Warren. But there's a new Ryan Murphy series, part of his monster series, that's about the Menendez brother murders. I don't want to talk about that. I want to stay as far away from that as possible. However, apparently the pilot episode is named Blame It on the Rain, and there is a scene in it where the two Menendez brothers are driving in on a car and listening to the Milli Vanilli song Blame It on the Rain, which, by the way, is a Diane Warren song.
What?
So
That was a hike.
apparently, because of this, this song
It's Star
is
Trek.
now it's now being rediscovered by like young people that are kind of
Oh,
too young
good.
to know Milli Vanilli, and there's been a huge spike in streaming numbers, and then like people on TikTok are making like fan edits of the characters from the show,
Oh boy.
which are
Weird.
actual real people. Like,
Ugh, I don't like
get
that.
they're actors. Yeah. So I'm going to stay away from that. But the point is that the show's suddenly getting popular again, and Diane Warren is absolutely basking in this newfound
Oh, sure.
attention for her old hits. She has been posting some of these TikToks on her socials. She's just been posting like jokes and memes related to the song. So yeah, I don't know. It's exciting for her. Wish it hadn't been from this show, but it's exciting to see that one of her songs is getting this new attention, even if it is Blame It on the Rain. It's still like that was one of her early hits. It's
Right.
getting suddenly very popular again. It's exciting for
All
her.
right.
Hopefully
All
she's
right.
making a lot of money from it.
Yeah, let's hope so.
I was kind of hoping that you were going to say it's leading to a new the new series from Ryan Murphy, American Crime Story: The Making of Star Trek Enterprise.
I thought you were going to say American Crime Story Milli Vanilli.
They betrayed us. They betrayed us all.
We believed in them. All right. Okay. Thank you, Jamie. So theme song is done. Let's get into the episode. The Enterprise has arrived at the planet, which, according to T'Pol, supports a rich animal population. Hoshi and Travis ask how that's possible, because it's a rogue planet without
Yeah.
a solar system or a sun.
Yep.
And surely it should have frozen solid. Paul figures out that they have geothermal energy. Hot gas is venting from the surface. Most of the life forms are concentrated in those areas. There is no evidence of humanoid life. But Malcolm picks up a power signature. There's a ship down there. They hail but get no response, so they decide to take a shuttle pod down. All right, you ready for this away team? Trip, T'Pol, Malcolm, Hoshi, and Archer all go down.
Wait, stop. Trip, Archer, T'Pol.
Trip, Archer, T'Pol, Malcolm, and Hoshi.
Everybody but Travis.
So I think that leaves.
And blocked.
So I
And
think
blocked, I suppose.
I think that leaves Travis in charge, which good for him.
Why would they send their entire bridge crew?
It's a lot.
Why would they send their entire command crew of the ship down to the planet and leave an ensign in charge on the ship? Like, I just...
They've
Here's
done
a
this
question.
before, but it really seems like it's a lot. Like, they've only ever done it when they have to, like, split up or, like, do different things or whatever.
Yeah,
but,
like,
yeah.
if they've sent some of the... There's times when they send, like, 2 of the command crew down, and there's something that goes wrong, and then the 3rd command crew member has to go save them. But that is an extenuating circumstance.
Not in this case. Random rogue planet, everybody's showing up.
Here's a question. Why is Hoshi going on the mission?
Well, yeah, that's a
He's
great
the
question.
Translate for the animals.
Why
Well,
is...
they have picked up a ship. They don't know what that ship is or who's on it, but it
A
is
ship or a
kind of
planet?
weird. Travis picked up a ship.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm
That's a different
sorry.
string.
Yeah, he picked up a power signature from a ship.
Okay, that's different.
And which they hailed, but they couldn't, like, there doesn't appear to be any indigenous life, but they did pick up this indigenous human life, but they did pick up this
Okay.
power signature. So maybe it's because of that. So I guess Travis is in charge, and good for him. They have some issues landing. Malcolm says the heat from the thermal vents is rendering the infrared useless, and Archer makes a joke about, I always said I could land a shuttle pod while blind, and I guess I'm going to have to because it's obviously super dark. And they still can't detect the ship, or they can't detect the ship, even though they should be right on top of it. But eventually they find a clearing and they land. Once they're on the planet, they put on these bright green, like, monocles, like glowy monocle things,
that's
which are
cool.
they're presumably like infrared, right, to see in the dark. And T'Pol does pick up the ship, and they start heading towards it through the jungle. Archer says the jungle reminds him of the rainforest in New Zealand. And earlier when they were on the ship, Hoshi compared it to the Amazon. It is a full-on tropical jungle.
Okay.
I wonder where they filmed it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Does it look like a set, or does it look like they're actually outside?
I think it's a combination. I think there are certainly parts that are definitely a set, but I think that, well, it might actually all be a set because it's all in pretty close quarters, so it's a little hard to tell.
I mean, there are botanical gardens in Southern California, like they used to shoot Fantasy Island, and you can go and see that stuff there. So they have
Right.
things like that. So.
Yeah. So Archer reminisces about being an Eagle Scout and earning badges.
Yeah.
And Malcolm says he was also an Eagle Scout, so apparently the Scouts have spread worldwide in the future, because aren't Eagle Scouts an American thing? Aren't the Scouts generally an American thing?
They do have scouting in England. I believe that they are legally separate organization, but they do have scouts in England.
Okay, well, they start comparing how many merit badges each has. Malcolm has 28, to much to the dismay of Archer, who only got 26.
Ooh.
And Malcolm's all, that's not bad, sir. And earlier when they had first gotten to the planet, Malcolm had tried to take point in the group, and Archer had shut him down. So Malcolm is currently 0 for 2 with Archer. Like, okay, like, read the room, bro. So as they go through this jungle, they kind of stop and look at the weird creatures. They see this blue glowy thing that looks like a cross between a lizard and a centipede crawling up a tree. And Archer says, that if they see any more creatures like this, he could earn the exobiology badge. And Malcolm, who can't leave well enough alone, says, I already have that one.
Burn.
Dude. And this is all supposed to be a cute interaction, and it generally is, but I think I'm so sick of Malcolm after all his character development that he just comes off as really smarmy.
Please tell me that they end up having to camp on the planet and the two of them are furiously trying to start a fire using like this stick and the two sticks and the bow.
Well, we'll see. So they finally get to what is clearly a campsite, but nobody is there. And Archer calls out, they identify themselves, but they still can't pick up any biosigns. But T'Pol says the ship is about 600 yards ahead. So Archer tells T'Pol and Malcolm to go check the ship out, and the others will hang back and see if anybody comes back to camp. So we follow T'Pol and Malcolm, but as is required with any TV show or movie that is in the jungle, the camera angle very soon turns to monster vision from the perspective of somebody watching them.
The second you were like, we're going into trope, I was like, I know what trope this is going to be.
Yep. And at first it's just regular, but then suddenly it changes to all red. So like somebody is watching them in night vision. So it seems like maybe there's multiple people watching them, but it isn't very clear. They keep going, then they hear someone, they put on their, green monocle things, and T'Pol says she got a biosign for a second, but it disappears. As she's saying this, we see that red camera vision right next to her, like just a few fronds in the way. And just as she says the biosign is gone, Malcolm turns and a humanoid attacks him from behind. And then two aliens come out in front and back of them. To their credit, to Malcolm's credit, he does not immediately fire or do anything stupid. They just kind of hold their hands up, which really makes sense for T'Pol, but I am shocked that Malcolm didn't try to take at least one of them out.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Malcolm wasn't holding like grenades.
Yeah. Right?
He was like,
just
trying to blow up this rainforest.
We knew this one at the time. My time is now. The aliens yell in a language we don't understand, first at them and then at the other. And then after a moment, the one alien clearly orders the other to stand down. We cut back to the campsite and there's a fire going, and Archer and Hoshi are sitting around it with another alien when the other two aliens bring Malcolm and T'Pol back. And Archer introduces everyone because I guess when they came back to camp, they made friends. The aliens are called the Eska. The leader's name is Damaris. Archer introduces T'Pol as his science officer, but doesn't tell them Malcolm's title, probably because he's forgotten it, because I've definitely forgotten it, in spite of the fact that I'm pretty sure we figured it out a few episodes ago. No idea.
He's the armory chief.
Officer.
Yeah,
Armory
he's in
officer,
charge of the
yeah,
armory.
Something. But he just says this is Lieutenant Malcolm Reed, which felt very weird. Like he didn't he specified what T'Pol was, but not what Malcolm was. But
this is Lieutenant Malcolm Reed, and he has 28 Eagle Scout badges.
28 Eagle Scout. There were 3 alien dudes. They're kind of all big guys. 2 are bigger than the leader. We never actually catch the names of the other 2 guys, so I'm just going to call them Ernie and Bert because they are, for all intents and purposes, interchangeable as far as I can tell. They look military. They're in camo fatigues. Malcolm is sulky about the aliens nearly shooting them.
What about the aliens?
He's sulky. Malcolm is sulky about the aliens nearly shooting them. But the Eskas just really don't give a shit. They just sort of laugh. They sort of apologize, but are pretty breezy about it. Ernie says there are dangerous animals in the forest and that they haven't ever seen any other humanoids in the area before. So they start comparing information. The Eskas aren't native to the rogue planet. Damaris, the leader, says it's no one's territory, but that it's a very special place for them. And Archer tells them that the Enterprise crew is just there to explore. The Eskas don't seem too happy about it, And Archer says, well, it's a big planet and they could easily pick another landing site, but he was hoping that the Eskas might enjoy the company. And he puts on his best, like, come on, let's be pals face. And to his credit, it kind of works. They keep him on there. The next scene, they're all eating dinner together, and the food is apparently great. Bert says that Dragon meat is one of life's great pleasures.
Uh-oh.
And they're like literally, they're chowing down on it. Between chomps, Malcolm asks why their sensors didn't detect the Eskas, and they say they use sensor cloaks to keep the wildlife from spotting them. Hoshi asks if they're studying the wildlife, and Ernie sort of chuckles at her and says, not exactly. And like the little girl is clearly implied. It's real shitty. They're real shitty. You immediately dislike
also,
the Eskas.
What else are they doing? Like, I am scared at what is coming.
The Eskas explain they're on a hunting expedition, and their people have been coming here for 9 generations. The Dragon that they're eating right now, the Eskas killed the day before. T'Pol and Damaris get snippy with each other about hunting. I looked really hard. When you guys rewatch this, check out this scene. I did not see if T'Pol ate. It was very hard to tell if she was eating or not. Everybody else was clearly eating and enjoying it. It doesn't seem like
especially
she would.
Especially if it's real meat, there's no way.
Right. So anyway, she gets real snippy about it. Damaris gets offended by it. He says that taking the wildlife is part of their traditions and that they don't touch the higher primates on the planet. And Archer tries to smooth it over by he talks about how humans also used to hunt for sport. And even though that went out of fashion on Earth 100 years ago, they still appreciate the hospitality. Archer does a decent job of being a diplomat here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the idea of going to like an exotic planet just to hunt its wildlife is like a little gross. But in terms of things that we've seen people on Star Trek do, like, I don't like this, but I can understand it. Like, I don't know. A lot of culture, like maybe it's part of their culture, like maybe
that's definitely what it seems like. It seems like it's sort of a tradition in their culture.
Jamie, if you don't like that premise, do not watch this movie called Predator.
Well, Jamie, you haven't seen Voyager, but Bill, I think you have, right? Have you seen Voyager?
I've seen some of Voyager, yeah. Not all
so
of it,
Voyager has the Hirogen, which are a species that are hunters. That's what they do. It's their entire thing. So it sort of reminded me a little bit of that, but not quite to the extreme that the Hirogens were. Anyway.
Right.
Malcolm wonders why they need such like serious equipment to hunt game, and Bert sort of chuckles again at him, saying that the game they're hunting often gets the better of them and shouldn't be underestimated. To everyone's surprise, and also no one's surprise, Malcolm asks if he can join a hunt. He's actually kind of obsessed with the Eskas technology. He wants to know how they were able to sneak up on them without being seen by their night vision sensors. Archer looks concerned, but Malcolm promises not to kill anything.
He wants to join their hunt, but he's like, I'm not going to kill anything.
But I'm not going to kill anything. I'm just going to be an observer.
He just wants to like watch. Okay,
watch the process.
That kind of makes sense.
And it makes a lot of sense because Malcolm's real weirded out by the fact that they got the drop on them. Like he had no idea they were there. So he really wants to get a look at their technology. Anyway, the Eskas sort of, again, kind of condescendingly laugh, but they agree. Bill, we then get a captain's log. An actual captain's log. It is a little confusing because they show the ship, but the captain's actually still on the surface doing the log.
So is this like in the future? Is this like it's just like a flash forward to the end of the
it's just a couple it's just a little bit later. Yeah, it's after they're done. The captain explains that Trip, Malcolm, and Hoshi are heading back to the ship. Malcolm and Trip are going to come back to the planet with camping equipment. Hoshi is staying the fuck on the ship because she ain't no dummy. She wants no part of this shit.
Why did they even have Hoshi? Okay. Just
Yeah.
like story-wise, it feels like, why did they even have Hoshi go down to the planet?
I mean, she did like participate. Like I cut some of the stuff that she said, but nothing was really critical, really, that she was involved in. I think they just maybe wanted her to be in some of the scenes. So they're all kind of getting stuff together. They joke about the glow in the dark bugs, and Malcolm says something about something called boar worms, and Trip looks worried. Trip is really coming into his himbo persona, y'all. I am actually surprised at how much I am starting to like him. And that might just be because compared to Malcolm, he isn't that bad. But
I mean, compared to all the other men on this show.
it's true. It's true. He really does seem like the best guy on this show, other than maybe Travis, who we just don't know enough about.
In my opinion, Trip is the star of this show. And
Yeah.
Connor Tournier is not gold. I think, as I've said, he's spinning brass out of the straw he is being given. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that we had a bad first impression because that first episode we got with him was the cocaine cave where he was being all racist.
Are you telling me that a character on Star Trek Enterprise made a bad first impression?
And yeah, well,
Bad second impression?
After that,
bad third.
I feel like a lot of the way that he was in the beginning, he doesn't seem like that anymore. He just seems, he just like gives himbo energy.
Yeah, that's
He
exactly.
just seems
what
like
it is.
he's happy to be there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it is cute. Like even the scene when he's taking pictures, like when Malcolm finds the ship, like, and Archer stands up and goes to like try to figure out what's going on. He like makes sure he like takes a picture of Archer in front of the view screen. Like it's just cute, you know?
Right.
Anyway, the humans are back on the planet. They're sitting around a campfire. T'Pol is all business. She's talking about how to organize exobiologists and the other science teams to explore the planet. Damaris walks over to say goodnight and to tell Malcolm that they're heading out in 6 hours and that he should get some rest if he still wants to come with them.
It's weird that they didn't bring what's her name? Is her name like Cutler, the entomologist?
Oh yeah, the exobiologist, yeah.
Or an entomologist?
Oh,
Or,
sorry, entomologist. You're right.
It's actually weird that Phlox didn't come with them from the beginning. Now that I think about it, like if they're originally they were going down to this planet that they thought was just animals, they were just checking out the wildlife. Where was Phlox?
Well, I do think that the ship kind of worried them, and they were going more like prepared. They were focusing more on whether that was a threat or not versus this is a science thing.
Okay.
They were like, this is the initial crew that's going to go down, check things out, make sure it's cool, and then we'll get the science team down.
Yeah, at this point, I feel like Phlox should be down there, but
yeah. Malcolm, Trip, and T'Pol all turn in, but Archer decides to stay up for a while by the fire. Some amount of time, he sort of leans back by the fire. Some amount of time passes because the evidence by the fire having started to die down, and now Archer is asleep, kind of leaning up against a log right by the fire. He wakes when he hears a female voice saying, "Jonathan." At first he thinks he imagined it, but then he hears it again. And he calls out, he looks around, then he hears some rustling in the trees. But he still can't see anything. He looks around, then he grabs a torch and heads out into the jungle, following the voice. This is straight up red shirt behavior, people.
Yep.
Like, it is crazy.
This is how you get killed by a salt alien.
Exactly. This is exactly it. He follows the rustling into a clearing and sees a woman in profile in the light. Light from where? No idea. But she's in silhouette. Don't quite see her, but she's clearly a white woman with long blonde ringlets and a long flowy like chiffon dress. She has flowers in her hair.
Oh,
weird.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
He tries to follow, but she disappears.
I'm really concerned that somehow she's part like the animals that they were eating or something. Oh no.
Back
Or
at
is this
camp.
like-
We're back at camp.
What's the fish that has the light that hangs off the front of it that we see in the...
Yeah, could be. So we're back at camp. Trip is saying that if the captain says he saw this lady, then he saw the lady. # believe Archer. The Eskas are skeptical. They can't pick up anything in the area. Travis, up on the ship, confirms that there's no other ships in orbit, no other biosigns on the surface. And the Eska say there are definitely no female humans in their hunting party. And it definitely isn't someone from the Enterprise.
Okay, but we already know that they're like looking for biosigns didn't work on the Eska. So
Great
there
point.
very much could be others. Like clearly their sensors don't work well on whatever these creatures are, or these
That
creatures
is
have some sort of
correct.
way to block it.
Archer says the woman was young with blonde hair and a nightgown. He says she seemed to know him and he felt like he knew her.
Sure.
That last bit even gives Trip pause. And he's like the staunch defender, but he's like, you knew her? What? How?
I don't know. We were just vibing. I just felt this real connection to her, man.
Damaris, the leader of the Eska, says that between the planet always being dark and the strange noises in the woods, it's easy to imagine things. He even pulls out Occam's razor, like, what are the chances that you would encounter a half-naked human woman who you think you know dozens of light years from your home world? And Archer's all like, well, if you put it like that. I mean, Damaris tells him to go to sleep. The Eskas all kind of laugh at them again, and Archer's very annoyed. The next morning, Malcolm and Eskas are getting ready to go on the hunt. They're planning to hunt some fire wolves. Ernie says it's a difficult hike about 6 kilometers away, but Malcolm doesn't seem worried about it. Or rather, he kind of does seem worried, but he's clearly like putting on a brave face. The Eskas say they want to hurry because they only have 2 days left. He says to preserve Dakala, their law states that they can only hunt here 4 days a year. Literally no one questions any of this, including what the fuck Dakala is.
Also, how does a rogue planet have a year?
Well, their year.
Probably
Presumably
their
the Eska's
that
year.
makes more sense.
Yeah. But good point.
Can I just ask about, because
Yes.
this is a rogue planet and it has no sun, is it just like always dark? Is it
Yeah,
never
it's a
day?
real dark episode. It's one of those really annoying, very dark episodes.
Yeah, I hate a dark episode, but I do like that they don't. It would be weird if they were like, it's daytime.
It's daytime. No, it's all dark. They light it fairly well. But like I said, like the scene with the woman, like there's light coming from somewhere, but we don't know where. Anyway, they kind of had to do it that way. So Malcolm is heading off with the Eskas. The others are planning on going to a nearby area where there are particularly active volcanic vents, mineral springs, steam vents, and so on. T'Pol's super excited about this. Damaris gets in another snarky comment about seeing beautiful women, and they all bro off on their way to the hunt. And we follow them. They go into the woods, and we see in their red camera view, and we see this four-legged creature. It's short and has hooves. It's sort of a cross between a goat and a boar, sort of like a piggish head, but then like it has, like the body of, like it has a longer body with 4 legs. And Damaris says that's the Dragon that they, what they had been eating. It's a Dragon female and they're very unpredictable. So they slowly go after it. You know how the ladies are, super unpredictable. So now we're going to start to bounce between what's happening with Malcolm and what's happening with Archer. And I am going to bounce between it because it kind of makes sense, but it's a little annoying. So let me know if you're not sure what's going on.
I have another question about the Eskas.
Yeah, of course.
At their culture, there's only 4 days a year that they're allowed to hunt on this planet.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But there's only 3 of them there?
Right. I don't know if it's not really made very clear, like each person is allowed 4 days, or it did seem like
it was like their hunting season.
You're
these
selected.
3 days.
Right.
You're selected to be able to go onto this. That's what it sort of seemed like, but they didn't really ask questions. They didn't really get into any of those details.
It's just strange that there's only 3 of them.
This makes sense to me because in some wildlife preserves, especially for hunting big game like bears and other things like that, to maintain the population, they have a lottery. Only certain people are allowed to hunt, and only during certain days because they want to maintain the population. So
yeah, but 3 people a year?
Well, but I mean, if you figure that there's not a lot of Because if all of the life is around these vents, there's probably not that much life on this planet.
It might be just like everybody on the planet gets in this giant lottery and you get
so a certain amount of people go there. It sounds like they have a really good wildlife management program for this rogue planet.
Yeah. Okay, so the hunters are going after this Drajan female. Archer is, guess what, guys? He's exploring a cave. Okay, it's not
another
cave.
Star Trek cave.
Always a cave. Okay, so it's not quite a cave. It's kind of a grotto because I guess it is in the open air, but because it's dark, it looks like a cave.
It's the same cave set that we've.
It's the same cave set, right?
For now, 50 years of Star Trek.
Kind of.
I'm just taking a guess here, but I'm guessing that the pretty lady is going to show up at here, and any cave becomes a grotto if there is a sexy woman in it.
That's true. That's a good point. That's a good point.
So, can I say what my theory that I hope is not true is?
Please
I'm
do.
worried that somehow that dragon that they ate is sentient, and the one he ate is somehow psychically linking with him in the form of a sexy female woman, and I'm terrified. I don't want that to be true. So let's keep going and let's hope it's not, but I'm scared.
Okay, you should be scared. So Archer says it reminds him of Yellowstone. T'Pol wanders off to examine an interesting vent or something, and
are there, when he says it's like Yellowstone, are there geysers and colorful pools of water? And
no,
stuff
just
like
big
that?
rocks,
No.
lots of rocks.
Just
Maybe,
rocks?
yes, just rocks.
And that reminds him of Yellowstone?
Apparently. I mean,
because that's when you think of Yellowstone, the thing you think are rocks.
Yeah, maybe they were just beyond. They're clearly vents and stuff. Because but we don't actually. I don't remember actually seeing them. But I don't know. I was really bored.
We don't see
episode,
steam coming up from a vent or something.
No, unless I completely missed it, which is certainly possible.
I wonder if this is a case of, because the planet was supposed to have all this volcanic activity, the writers might have written the script expecting it to look like Yellowstone, and then they did not have the funding to
have
make
the ability
set actually look like Yellowstone, but they kept that line in the script.
Yeah.
Maybe they wrote it thinking that they could scam a trip to Yellowstone for the filming of the episode.
Yeah, maybe. So T'Pol is off examining some interesting vent or whatever. Trip takes the opportunity to check if his commanding officer is, insane. So this is the conversation. Trip. So she was wearing a nightgown. Archer just looks exasperated. Trip. You think she's real? Archer. I wasn't hallucinating. Trip. Captain, it doesn't make any sense. Archer. I know. Trip, have you ever known me to do anything foolish? Steven and me. Yes, every single episode.
Also, it's one thing to believe him, to be like, I believe that you saw this. And it's another thing to be like, the thing that you saw is definitely real, was actually there. There was actually a woman standing there in a chiffon nightgown.
Right. So Archer makes the point that he walked into an alien jungle alone, chasing a woman who couldn't possibly have been there. I mean, at least he recognizes his red shirt move. But he says he felt drawn to the woman, like he didn't have any control and he couldn't explain it. And Trip is really trying here, but he can't bring himself to believe it. And this is one of Maria's top 10 pet peeves in sci-fi shows, which is when somebody sees or hears something that nobody else can, and rather than saying, oh, this might just be some weird alien shit because we see weird alien shit literally every day, they're all like, you're crazy, bro. It drives me insane.
Yeah. Sorry, the second you said he felt like he had no control, like he had to go after it, is really scary.
Right.
And I don't know all the aliens that humans have met at this point, if they've met it's
not many.
Some alien species that have psychic abilities, but presumably they at least know about them through what they've learned
yeah,
from the Vulcans.
They
So
definitely
should-
know about telepaths because of the last episode.
Right.
Wait,
The
what?
Vulcans with the Vulcans, right? They definitely know that Vulcans have telepathic abilities, so why wouldn't other...
Oh yeah. So I just don't understand why they don't even consider the fact that
Right.
maybe an alien is doing this to them. I mean, even here on Earth, there are species that produce hallucinations like frogs
Right.
and stuff. So I just don't understand why it doesn't occur to them that there might be something physical on the planet that is causing this.
Well, is
Yeah.
Archer pushing the theory that there is actually people on this planet, or is he just like
No,
super
he-
insistent that
He is just insistent that he saw this woman
okay,
and that something weird is going on. But he realizes that this is bizarre and
But
there
it's
must be
taken
something
him a
going on here.
while. Like, it seems like in the beginning he was like, no, definitely this lady was there.
There's
And now
definitely a lady.
after a while he's like, okay, I guess it sort of doesn't make sense.
I mean, he is saying, like, I wasn't hallucinating. This was something definitely
Okay, but
there.
how would he know?
Right.
Sorry, like, did you see
You always
footprints?
think you know. Right.
Like, that's what hallucinations are. You actually cannot.
Believe
look
what you're
real.
seeing. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So back on the hunt, the bros have seen the Drajan pig, dog, goat thing again, but when one of them like turns their head, we also see movement, like something comes out of a rock. They don't see it, but we do, and it's this weird like wavy thing that looks sort of like it might be, you don't see it very well, but it looks like it might be like a human-sized slug. It seems really big and it kind of undulates for a bit and then it slithers away. And Damrus, who gets a glimpse of it, yells, "Wraith!" And everybody stops. And he and the bros actually look a little scared for the first time. When Malcolm asks what it is, Bert says, oh, it could be nothing. It's just a plume of steam. And he says that creatures can like fool their thermal sensors. There's all this stuff. Malcolm wants to go check it out, but Damrus says there's no point in chasing a sensor goat. There's no point in chasing a sensor ghost.
Damn sensor goats.
So he tells Ernie to take Malcolm away back onto the main trail, and that he and Damrus will go after the thing. And Ernie doesn't seem real happy about it. Damrus is clearly trying to avoid Malcolm dealing with this wraith. So they go off. And now we're back at the volcano. Trip's taking photographs. Like, just got his
Good.
little camera out, click, click, click. Like, yes, this makes sense to do. And T'Pol is still off investigating whatever. Archer is just wandering around, and he looks out into the forest and he sees the woman ahead of him in the jungle. He looks back and Trip is like right behind him, but
Okay,
not
I
that
was just
far
about
off.
to ask. Uh-huh.
He's not that far off. He's pointed in the other direction while he's still taking photos.
And then does he look back and the woman's gone?
Exactly so. That was
Yeah.
exactly the line. He looks back and the woman is gone. So he goes into the jungle again, and now he's chasing her, but like in that kind of fun, sexy chasing where she's like looking back and wants to be caught.
Is this tree flirting? Do we get some tree flirting?
There's a little bit of tree flirting. So he
Yeah.
finally
Wait,
comes.
where's Trip? Trip isn't following
Trip's
him?
still taking photos. Trip
Why
didn't
did
notice
he tell
him.
Trip, come with me.
He's a
I see
fucking
the
idiot.
lady.
Like, do you see the lady? I saw the lady. Come with me. No, he just goes off. He
Okay.
finally runs into this clearing. He hears his name again, and he turns around, and she's standing there.
hmm Okay, so if this is, as I suspect, some kind of lure, either some predatory creature or whatever, that sort of makes sense that the mental illusion would affect your mind in such a way that you
Right.
don't call for help. Like, it's the purpose of
Yeah.
this is to get him off by himself. Okay, so
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna
mean, he said
give it the
before
benefit of the doubt.
the first time that he saw her that he felt like he like had to go after her.
And knew
like
her,
it
yeah.
was almost
So this is-
involuntary.
This is the siren song. This is okay. I'm
Yeah,
I'm
right.
gonna give him the benefit of the doubt.
She says, Jonathan, again. He asks who she is. She does not reply. To his credit, he then pulls out his communicator and starts tapping on it. Like, he doesn't have a tricorder, I guess, but he asks how she knows his name. And she says, "I need you, Jonathan."
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He looks up from the communicator and says she is speaking English. She's not like, this isn't the universal translator.
One of the
she's
biggest
straight
signs
up
somehow
speaking English.
She's either in your head or like psychic somehow.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he says she's speaking English, and she says that she needs him to understand. He says he knows her and asks how that's possible. And she says, "If you didn't know me, would you have come?" He asks why she needs him, and she says, "You're different." And he's
You're
asking
not like
her
the
what
other boys.
he's not like the other men.
God, men are so easily manipulated.
No shit.
So he's in the process of asking her what the hell that means when she hears a noise. He hears it too. He asks her what it is, and she looks scared and like starts breathing heavily and looking into the jungle. And as she does that, we then cut back to the Eskas in the woods chasing after somebody. And then back to her, she says, "Harm." And he says he doesn't want to harm her. And she says, "Not Jonathan." And he asks who. And as she's going to answer, Trip comes up behind them with a flashlight and calls out. And Archer turns to look, and when he looks back, she's gone.
I feel like maybe it's not the one he ate, but it's one of the other ones that they're hunting.
So T'Pol and Trip ask Archer if he's all right. He doesn't tell them anything. He just says he was taking some scans, and they walk back to the little grotto cave area. Meanwhile, the hunting party is still looking for this wraith, because they called it a wraith. And in Red Vision, we see Bert looking around, and then he looks straight ahead, and this big slug thing comes right at him. It's like a slug, but flat. It's really weird. It's hard to describe, but it comes straight at him. And the next scene, we're back in camp. Bert's on the ground screaming in pain. The thing attacked him. And the Eskas and T'Pol are trying to help, but he's like screaming and flailing. Dameron says it was a Dragon female that did it. T'Pol says there's no internal damage, but he's lost a lot of blood. And Archer offers to take him to the ship for Phlox to help. Dameron is hesitant, but Ernie convinces him to let them help Bert.
Again, weird that Phlox didn't, like, after they figured out what was going on and they went back to get camping supplies, they should have brought Phlox with them. Like, there's clearly, like, lots of, like, weird
stuff.
Alien animal life on this planet. It would make sense for Phlox to have been there.
Exactly.
And even just as scientists, they would be collecting samples of,
Yeah.
Cool stuff. Yeah. Archer tells Trip and Malcolm to get him to the shuttle pod and to the ship. Dameron says that all of the Enterprise crew should go back to the ship. He says the Eskas came fully aware of the dangers of the planet, but the humans didn't. And Archer says he's not ready to leave.
Why? Like, what? Oh, because of the woman.
Because
Sorry,
of the
I already
lady.
Forgot about the woman.
Yeah,
I was
that's
like,
how
what
this
is keeping
episode
them
is.
here?
This episode is so boring, you forget what happened halfway through it. Like, it's terrible. Anyway, so Archer's now in his tent, reading his Kindle. I don't know. It's like some pad. And T'Pol kind of peeks through the opening to give him the update that the shuttle pod has docked with Enterprise. She gets ready to leave, but he asks her to come in. She looks very uncomfortable about coming into his tent. But she comes in.
How big is this tent?
It's like a little pop-up tent. It's not a big tent. It like literally has the little zippy thing.
He can't
like
talk
that she pokes
to
her
her
head
outside?
into. Apparently not. I guess maybe he wants to talk to her in private, but I mean, it's
have-
still a zippy tent. It's not like people can't hear her. Hear them.
Anyone standing outside would. I feel like you'd be better off outside where you can see who's around you.
Yeah. So she looks uncomfortable. She awkwardly comes in and sits next to him. And Archer tells her that he saw the woman again. T'Pol asks what she said, and Archer said that she said she needed him. And he says that he thinks somebody is trying to hurt her. T'Pol tells him he should go back to Enterprise and have Phlox take a look at him.
That is a very good idea, actually. Like, at this point, they have no idea what's going on. He could be infected with something.
He could be pregnant.
Or, like, ingested something that's causing... have a doctor look at him. Or the closest thing they have to a doctor.
have your space vet check it out. And Archer kind of grins at her. He kind of understands what she's saying, but he shows her the Kindle, the little pad, and that apparently has all of the readings that he took, and says there are no psychotropic compounds there. He was not hallucinating.
Sorry, just because you have not had a sorry, I cannot say that word. Just because you haven't ingested something that caused a hallucination does not mean that you are not having a hallucination.
Right.
Also, it's really hard to see insanity from inside insanity.
Right?
You would be like...
At this point, like, when he blinks, this lady disappears. It is clear that this is not a physical woman that he is seeing. Whatever he's seeing is coming from in his head. We just don't know. It doesn't mean that he's, like, got some sort of weird, like, mental illness or something, but it definitely is a hallucination. It 100% is a hallucination.
So... T'Pol stuns him and has an emergency beam up to the Enterprise.
Get him the fuck out of here. That is what Spock would have done. So Archer says he doesn't know what she is. He knows she can't be human, but he's determined to find out who and what she is. He says he's going to find her. And T'Pol immediately is like, okay, I'm going to go with you. And Archer says no. She reminds him that a well-armed hunter was nearly killed today, and he should not go into the forest alone.
Okay, is there... I want to say on TNG there were situations where if the captain is like something's wrong with him, that their crew can sort of do like...
Yes.
The protocol, yeah. Well, there's something
where they So I feel like they need to call Phlox down, and Phlox needs to be like, I've determined that you are not in your right mind right now, and force him to go back to the Enterprise.
They haven't invented that yet. This is the episode where they invent that protocol.
That protocol doesn't exist. Yeah.
One day we're gonna have a directive.
It's a little unclear to me because Phlox isn't Starfleet, even assuming they have that protocol. Right. If he could make a call like that, it seems like it would be problematic to me to have a doctor who's not Starfleet declare that your captain can't captain.
In regular Star Trek, in non-Enterprise Star Trek, if he was officially the chief medical officer, then yes, he could do that. But I don't know what Phlox, because the reason
your chief medical officer is a Starfleet officer.
I mean, well, I'm thinking about Voyager, where the chief medical officer turns out to be the emergency hologram. And so they make a big thing about how he is the chief medical officer. They have no choice. He has to be. And so he gets all of those privileges. So they could assign him as chief medical officer on the ship.
How about this?
I don't know why they would need to, because they have all of Earth's resources and could bring a Starfleet person on, but...
Let's stop pretending that this show makes sense. We know that it's going to be Archer chasing a hot chick through the forest, and let's just move on with our lives.
You're right. So Archer says he gets that it's dangerous, but since the woman has chosen to communicate with only him, he has to go alone. He doesn't think she will reveal herself if there were others around.
Oh my God. This feels bad. This definitely feels like he's somehow being controlled. Like you said, Bill, yeah, like the siren thing is also making him make bad decisions.
Oh, yeah.
That is right. T'Pol asks if that's the only reason that he's going by himself, and he looks like surprised and confused by this question, and she says... I had to write exactly this down because it's so good. She says,
oh, no.
With respect, Captain, I wonder if you would be so determined to find this apparition if it were a scantily clad man. And she leaves the tent because there is no more truth for her to give. T'Pol has some beautiful snark in this episode.
I almost said that earlier. Like, if this were a man, he would never be this insistent.
That's exactly what she says.
She's a hot chick, as Bill said. So therefore,
But the lady,
he's got to go after her, and he's got to do it alone.
Is Archer about to be pig butchered? Like, for real? For, like, to be... I don't mean his currency is going to be taken. No, you don't understand. She needs my help, and she's, on this rogue planet.
This genuinely feels like a situation where the captain is not in his right mind. Yep. You need to, like knock him out or something, like stun him and get him back to the Enterprise without his consent, because there's something not right with him.
Yeah. Great news. None of that happens.
Sure.
Okay. So back up on the ship, Trip is checking in with Phlox about Bert, I think, whoever I named him. I don't remember. The guy who got hurt.
The Phlox two characters you named because they are literally indistinguishable from each other?
They are absolutely indistinguishable. Phlox says Bert is fine. Phlox was able to synthesize his blood and give him the transfusion that he needs. He asks Trip if he knows what attacked the man, and Trip says it was a Drazian. Phlox says he found cellular residue in the wound that was not the Eskas, and he shows Trip the cells under a microscope, and you kind of see these things wiggling around.
They're all tiny hot chicks.
Explains. That would be so amazing. They're all like in the pen.
Yes.
I imagine the cells. They're like hourglass shaped.
Like
oh my god. He says the cells are in a state of chromosomal flux, that they're mutating and trying to become something else, but they don't know what. Back at the cave/grotto, Archer is back to wandering around and calling out for the woman.
This is sad.
And
it's like 3 a.m. drunk shit.
It's bad. She does show up. And after a couple of useless, like, who are you? My tricorder says you're real, but I know that you can't be. He says that even though she's clearly real, there's no way she's human.
Wait, he's got his tricorder, and the tricorder is registering something?
As there is something there. There is absolutely something there.
Oh, that is interesting.
Yep. But not a human. And she doesn't even know what a human is.
Well,
so
yeah, obviously it's not a human, Archer. Like, we know that.
So this time, she actually sticks around long enough to get some sort of an explanation. She is one of a group of creatures on the planet that can shapeshift into whatever they want, and they have telepathic ability, so they can see what would be the most effective way to approach or scare someone to make them trust them or whatever.
She told him, we have telepathic abilities, you're seeing me through... Yeah, which is,
right,
again, the obvious explanation. That it's not clear why no one else came to that.
Oh, I think everyone else did come to this conclusion. It's just that Archer didn't want to.
Archer was like, no, there's actually a sexy lady on this planet.
Definitely this sexy lady. She chose Archer because she says he was different from the Eskas, who come every year to hunt them. Her kind are what the Eskas prize more than anything else. Archer looks shocked, making him the only person who did not get this.
We cut back to the Eskas literally explaining to him at the camp.
We're back at the campsite. The guys are all drinking. T'Pol is there too, but obviously she's not drinking. Bert is back. They're all toasting and chatting about what happened that day and their plan for the next day. Archer's being super friendly, like wishing them good hunting.
Wait, Archer's back at the camp too?
They're all back at the camp. Everybody's back. Archer asks if they have hunting on their homeworld. And Dameron says they do, but the prey here is different. And Archer says that the creatures that he's seen, boar and wolves and some reptile things, don't seem all that different from any place else. Bert says, go ahead.
I just want to say, Archer does this thing all the time. Like, we've seen him do this multiple times where he has extra information, but he pretends like he doesn't, and then does this kind of leading thing where he acts like everything's okay and is like talking to people, but he's just waiting to do the gotcha. We saw it last episode. We've seen it in the past when he's been, it was like,
unfortunate he did
just
it,
like making
unfortunate
small
son.
talk.
Yep, it is his go-to move.
It is, dare we call it, the Archer maneuver.
Yeah. So yeah, he's like, but I mean, these prey don't seem that special. And Bert says that the prey here are different. They can get inside your mind and sense your thoughts. So those motherfuckers absolutely knew what was going on.
Yeah, so the second he saw someone, they were like,
absolutely knew what was going on.
Maybe these creatures could not psychically link with, sorry, what are they called again? The
Eskas.
Eskas.
Yeah.
It was like the Ezras. The Eskas. So I was thinking maybe, because aliens are different. They have different biology. Like, maybe they weren't able to psychically link with them, and they didn't even know that these are sentient creatures. But apparently they knew this whole time, and meanwhile, like, they know that Archer's okay.
Yeah, they knew that Archer was not crazy. They knew exactly what was happening to him, and they let it happen.
And then they were gaslighting him.
Yep, they gaslighted the shit out of him.
Or these, first of all, obviously they should have told them that, these creatures can get in your head and make you see whatever it's, or this is the way the hallucination is affecting Archer, is causing him to believe that these are sentient creatures who are actually talking to him, when really it's just like some psychoactive drug where it's like, oh my God, the telephone is talking to me.
Right.
Yeah.
So Archer says that it seems like a lot of work for a couple of wild boars, and finally the Eskas break down and tell them that it's not the Dragon they're hunting, but the Wraiths.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait.
They're two different things. So the Dragon are the little goat pig creatures.
And the Wraiths are the slugs.
Wraiths are the slugs that are shapeshifters. Telepathic shapeshifter slugs.
So did they eat the slugs? Or did they eat...
Unclear.
When they ate, did they eat the Wraiths or the
Oh my God,
Dragon?
is this the planet they left Sluggo on?
That's why they brought Hoshi.
They turn around. Hoshi is sitting on a stone throne, stroking a slug. Well, Captain.
I would love that so much. So they say it's the Wraiths that they're hunting. It's unclear if they eat them or not, JV. Probably. Who knows? Archer plays dumb and even says he doesn't believe them.
Still? Is he just mad that he didn't get to do his gotcha because they just came out and told him?
Yeah, absolutely. They say that he must believe them because he saw, they literally use his gaslighting as evidence for, they were like, you saw one, that mystery woman was undoubtedly a Wraith. And Archer, again, is playing dumb, she looked human.
Oh my God.
Ooh.
And they laugh and say,
what is the point of this?
They laugh at him and they say, it may not have even been female. Which, Jesus Christ, people. Cause that's far, it would have been fine if you'd fucked a slug, but if you'd fucked a male slug.
That would be so gay,
That would
Maria.
be the worst.
And gay people do not exist, remember.
not exist.
Star Trek has not invented gay people yet.
So they say that they're shapeshifters who can get in your head. T'Pol, ever the voice of reason, says that they sound like intelligent, sentient beings. Damara
Yeah.
says, not the way you or I would measure intelligence. He says it's an instinctive response, not actual intelligence.
Right.
They say that the shapeshifters can turn into anything, actually turn into it. So if they become a rock, they are a rock. So that's why the scanners can't tell the difference.
Oh, interesting.
And Dammers says that before they figured out how to spot them, these creatures, the wraiths, killed more Eskas than had ever killed the wraiths. He talks about his father, who'd come here many years back with a hunting party and gotten cornered and attacked by the wraiths. And just his father and just 2 others survived, but were never the same. And everyone looks sort of sad and sympathetic, but they kind of hold the focus on Archer's reactions because he clearly connects with some daddy issues there. But the moment passes, they continue to talk. Archer asks how they now manage to detect them. And Ernie says that when a wraith is cornered, they panic and emit a chemical signature, and the Eskas have modified their scanners to detect that chemical. Time for a fight, you guys! So everybody's back on the ship trying to figure out what to do next. So T'Pol says that while she agrees it's a shitty thing that's going on, she isn't sure that there's much they can do about them. They talk about how the Eskas know the area and are well armed. Even Malcolm doesn't think it's a good idea to just try to attack them or stop them head on. And T'Pol says that even if they could stop these 3 guys, they have no right to. Archer and Trip, of course, take that bait and start yelling about the Eskas having no right to come to the planet to kill sentient species. T'Pol kind of ends the argument by saying that even if they do stop them, there isn't anything to stop the Eskas from coming back again to hunt, which they've been doing for hundreds of years.
Right.
So Archer asks the doctor if he can come up with something to mask the scent of the wraith's fear response, and Phlox happily trots off to medical bay to figure that out.
So it's a good thing that in that past episode, Dear Doctor, Archer came up with the idea for some sort of directive, but they never actually came up with the directive.
Someone else, I think Archer literally said, somebody's going to come up with this
Somebody
directive.
somewhere, but it ain't gonna be me.
So they still don't have a prime directive, because otherwise, like, the prime directive would be clear about, like, this is not our problem.
I don't know, though, because doesn't the prime directive only apply to pre-warp civilizations?
Yes.
And these guys are...
Well, no, it only applies to warp civilizations that are part of the Federation. Like, there are other alien races that they've met who aren't part of the Federation that they can't impose Federation law upon.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
I feel
the
like
problem,
they're very hands-off. Like, to me, this is a very clear situation of there's, like, weird cultural stuff going on.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't know... Even if you're like, I feel like this is ethically wrong, I don't know what you would do about it.
All of this would be a much more interesting conversation than what we have.
The only evidence they have that the wraiths are a sentient species that is asking for help is one guy who saw a hot chick and was tripping balls.
Yeah. Correct.
This could literally just be the response to whatever drug he was being affected.
Yeah,
or
but no, they're going to start a whole war over it now.
A telepathic attack, which, as we saw in the last episode,
right, could easily happen. But yes,
yeah, like, I don't like this. I don't like the idea that they're coming here and, like, killing. But also, in terms of things that we've seen aliens do, they come for 3 days a year and maybe kill a wraith or 2. Not that that's good, like, that still seems bad, but in terms of things that we have seen,
right,
like,
but it was a hot chick.
Star Trek
they might
races
kill
do.
the hot chick, though.
let's let this play out and let's see if they somehow establish that this is an intelligent race that is being hunted, which that's a different ball of wax. Let's continue. If this is a never answered, I'm going to be pissed.
Point, he is assuming they are a intelligent sentient race, for better or for worse. Okay. So Archer is in the mess hall. It's late at night. Nobody's there. Late at night. It's late. He is staring. Yeah, the lights are down. He's staring out at the planet in the window. Trip walks in, says hello, orders a cold milk. That's our food. That's our second food thing. Archer asks him if he knows any poetry. That is his opening line. Trip makes a joke about limericks, but basically says no. Archer says that when he was a kid, his mother
has never heard a poem in his life.
Yeah. Basically.
Like, sorry. Like,
he knows
Trip doesn't know anything about poetry.
Well, we've established that Trip, being a North American, only reads comic books and silly science fiction stories.
That's right. So Archer says that when he was a kid, his mother would recite a poem to him to help him sleep. He says he would always ask for The Song of the Wandering Angus by Yeats. He recites the first couple of lines to a somewhat confused Trip, who is probably still stuck on Angus. Who's Angus? The poem is about a man who goes out one night to fish and catches a trout. The trout turns into a beautiful woman with apple blossoms in her hair. She calls his name and vanishes, and he spends the rest of his life searching for her. Archer has figured out that when he listened to the poem as a kid, he had an image in his mind of what that woman looked like, and that is the image that the Wraith used to come to them and to trust him. Archer says he hadn't thought about the poem in years, which is why he didn't recognize her right away. Trip still seems confused, but he goes with it, and they start discussing why they would pick that shape and whatever, when Phlox comes in and says he may have, or calms in and says he may have found something. Archer leaves, saying that even though she's basically his imaginary friend, he'll be damned if he's going to let anyone shoot her. Trip drinks his milk.
I love Trip so much. That man is growing on me.
Yeah, Trip is like, okay.
Please tell me they just hold on Trip for a second, and he goes, that poem didn't rhyme.
Oh my god. Okay. Back on the planet, the Eskers are on their last day of hunting. It's just them. They're running through the jungle with their red goggles. One of them is sure they saw a wraith, but they aren't picking anything up. We see a Dragon run into a little clearing and then shapeshift into a tree. The Eskas show up a second later and are very confused because they're sure it's there and they know it has to be super scared, but they can't detect it. They can't detect it. They just start shooting randomly into the grove to like freak out the thing, very conveniently shooting around the tree that is like right in front of them.
But
they're trying to
shooting the tree, like
not shooting the tree. They don't know that it's the tree. We know it's the tree.
I assume they're using like phaser.
Yeah, they have
energy
weapons of some sort, and so they're trying to scare the wraith to get them to give off that chemical. Dameron he's looking around in his red vision, and he sees the tree turn into the slug thing and leap right at him. The others shoot at him, but they miss. And the thing runs away, or slithers away. Dameron is okay. He stands up shakily, but they are very confused as to what's going on and why their scanners aren't working. And then they suddenly, like, start hearing, like, screeching in the forest. They start to get scared because they don't know what's going on, and they kind of get back to each other, and the noises get louder and louder, and they're like, fuck this, then they decide to go back to camp. Archer and Trip are waiting for them back at camp. They do that thing where you're sitting in a dark room when somebody comes home and they scare them.
Right.
Or like, how was your hunt or whatever.
Like you're way past your bedtime, young lady.
Exactly.
Like, do you know what time it is?
Archer just makes some excuse about they're still there taking some last few scans, asks if they're okay because the Eskas are clearly rattled. And Archer and Trip are acting really concerned about it. They explain that their scanners aren't working, and Archer says that he's sorry that they won't be taking home any trophies this year in a not at all sorry tone. The penny drops for Dameron, and he's like, wait a minute. We never failed before you guys arrived. And Archer and Trip just sort of look at each other knowingly, and Archer says that he guesses they're bad luck. So we get one last scene back in the grotto with Apple Blossom Lady.
Sorry. Meanwhile, this other species actually like depends on this for their own survival.
Right,
Like,
that is an important culling mechanism.
There's
prevents
some sort of chemical they can only get from killing one of these creatures a year that like keeps all of them alive.
Cut to the next season. They've starved to death, and there's a bunch of young laying all around on the ground because there wasn't enough food.
There's too many. Exactly.
It just seems like they gathered way too little information to be comfortable intervening like that.
Sure.
They just were absolutely sure it was a sentient species. And to be fair,
even if it's sentient, I just
did
feel
seem like it was a sentient species. But yes,
that's fair. But even so, at least like figure out more about this other culture. Like, why is this hunt so important to them? Like, I just feel like they've gone into like, oh, this is just a trophy hunt or whatever without really knowing. And it kind of seems like it's not. It seems like it's very, very important. It doesn't seem like these are just like random rich aliens on a trophy hunt for fun when it's only like 3 of their kind are allowed to go per year for 3 days. Like it seems
and it's a
really
ones that like they're never
somehow.
coming back. Those particular guys are never coming back.
I'm going to take a wild stab here. Star Trek Enterprise is never coming back to this planet ever, ever, ever again.
Probably so. So finally seeing there, he's talking to the lady. The Eskas are gone, and even though they'll be back, she confirms that she's given the masking agent to all the others, so they should all be safe from detection. She thanks Archer, who tells her that he finally remembers who she is, and thanks her for reminding him. And she says...
Okay, but it's not that lady. It's an alien lady.
Well, who she is pretending to be, or whatever. Why he was connected to her. And she says... never stop seeking what seems unattainable, which really resonated with me because I feel like it's speaking directly to us looking for an episode of the show that is actually good.
There have been some good episodes. There have been some acceptable episodes of this show.
Not bad episodes.
There have been some not bad episodes. There's been some, okay, I enjoyed this episode. I do not believe there have been an actually good, truly good Star Trek episode. Anyway. She touches his face and they say goodbye, and she tells him not to forget her. Y'all, I was 100% sure that they kissed in this scene, but when I watched it the second time, they did not. They just kind of hold hands, and she walks away, and then as she is leaving, she turns and smiles at him. Then she turns back, becomes a slug, and then the slug turns back towards him. And then she slides off.
I love that. Love that.
And then we cut to Malcolm's face, who has the exact first look on his. Yes. I wonder if she turns into a butterfly.
Archer says, "I won't," and we cut to credits. That's it. End of episode. Y'all. So. Overall impressions of this episode, y'all, this was a slog. The second time I watched
it's a slug.
It's a slug. It's a slug. The second time I watched it, I was super tired. I literally fell asleep for like a minute during the episode. And yeah, it just was a really long way to go for very little story. It was just really dull.
You always get the worst episodes.
You have terrible luck with these episodes.
I have the worst luck, man. So the Eskas weren't particularly interesting, but also that last scene where Archer basically told them that he was responsible for this. I mean, he didn't, but he basically did. He wanted to rub it in their face. He did not need to do that and make another enemy. Like, he basically could have left.
Once again, they have started another blood feud with an alien race they have met for the first time. So it's the Suliban, this race.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like this really is something very important to their culture. And I'm not saying that makes it right, but it definitely means that by messing with it, you could be starting a war with them.
Right.
And we don't even know like what their technology is. They could have better technology than the humans.
They do have.
Yeah, and
They do
could be,
have
like,
better
Or-
technology.
They could be so upset about this that they are like, we're hunting humans from now on.
Or if this is how this race determines like leadership in some sense, because he failed, now some horrible person is going to become the leader of this race.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. The lie was they accidentally ate a sentient species. Okay.
That's right. They did not eat a sentient species. They ate the Dragon, which were,
Okay.
as far as we know, non-sentient. But
So
I
fuck
did.
them.
I was with you. I was 100% sure it was going to turn out that they ate. And really, they should have done, like, that would have made for a more interesting episode, I think, if they had to
Yeah,
deal
if
with the
they're
fact
like,
that they
"Oh,
had
shit."
eaten. Yeah.
Yeah.
Porthos good boy scale. No Porthos. I don't even want to talk
Again,
about it. I'm so angry. Like, fucking no Porthos. What the hell?
Why didn't
It's
she
been
turn
so long.
into Porthos? Why
Right?
didn't Archer see Porthos on?
Wouldn't that be Wouldn't that be great? Like he sees Porthos barking and like chases. That I can understand you
They're
chasing
hunting-
after Porthos.
Yeah, if these aliens were hunting beagles on this planet, fuck them, wipe them out.
Start that war.
That's
Yeah,
a war I will
that's a-
support.
That's absolutely a war worth fighting. Never asked, never answered. Something in this episode that made no sense and was never explained so much. But the one thing that really was weird, when the aliens first show up with T'Pol and Malcolm, just the two of them, they are yelling in a language we don't understand. Like they're, something is wrong. They don't understand what's going on. But then once they get to the campsite, everybody is speaking English, or at least the universal translators are working. Why they didn't work on the first time? Never asked, never answered. No idea.
I feel like they've shown before the universal translators take a bunch of samples of the language first. So it makes sense to me that it wouldn't have known what they were saying
Immediately.
as soon as they started talking. I would have been more suspicious if it had.
Maybe so. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I guess so. But it was confusing. But also, any idea about either the Wraiths or the Eska, who they are, the Wraiths, how did they evolve there in this weird, like, do they have any sort of society or culture, any of that about either the Wraiths or the Eskas? No, none of that. Never asked, never answered. They just fuck right off.
Did this need to be a rogue planet? No.
It did not.
Which is a cool
Well-
title for an episode.
Well, that is a very good.
It very much could have just been a normal planet.
Yeah.
Mhm,
And
yeah.
the story would have been exactly the same.
So this is a very good segue into technical difficulties, because I was very curious about the whole rogue planet thing. Was it really a thing? How would it work? Would it really be able to support that much life, like a whole jungle? So I reached out to friend of the pod, bad astronomer Phil Plate, to ask what was going
Nice.
on.
And he held it up as one of the pinnacles of Star Trek science in real life.
So Phil has actually watched Enterprise. He did vaguely remember this episode. But yeah, so rogue planets, definitely a thing. In fact, the first was discovered in 2000, and this episode came out just 2 years later. So this feels like them really kind of using some new neat science fact to build the idea for a backdrop to the story, but they don't actually, as you said,
even though it has nothing
Right.
to do with the story
has
itself.
nothing to do with the actual story. It was just, they just wanted to show that. So Phil said that a rogue planet with a lot of geothermal energy does make sense. That could be a thing. It would have to be a lot more active than Earth to stay warm on the surface, though. Like, think about how cold it can get at night here. Like, without the sun, the Earth's surface would very quickly freeze solid. So you need a lot of geothermal activity. But they did say that the plant and animal life was concentrated around the vents where they were coming out. So it's not like the whole planet is teeming with life. It's just those areas.
I guess I thought a lot of times when planets are geothermal, it's because there's a lot of gravity acting on them. Like it's like a moon and there's gravity acting on it that's like causing the planet to kind of like undulate or something,
Like
and
shift,
then that
right.
then that creates
Yeah, maybe so.
I'm clearly not a scientist, like some sort of heat, but clearly that would not be the case for this planet. Something else would be causing
Something else is
geothermal activity.
There's some other reaction going on in the core of the planet that's causing that. Phil said, as far as plant and animal life, because I was like, this is like a lush jungle. It just seems like it should be like, I don't know. It just didn't seem right. But he said, look, we know so little about how life works that he wouldn't discount the idea that was possible on a planet without a solar system. However, having plants with green leaves doesn't make any sense. which is a great point.
But there could be hot chicks on these planets, which is why we need to fund SETI to find them.
We need to find those hot chicks. So terrestrial trees use leaves to respire, so it's possible there would be trees on a planet. He also said he wasn't sure how eyes on animals would evolve, unless they saw far infrared, which is really cool.
The slugs had eyes.
Yeah, the slugs had they had little eye stalk things, and the Dragon had eyes. They looked like regular little whatever. Phil says he's written about this a few times. The best shot at life on a rogue planet, or for a rogue planet to work, in his opinion, is for like a small moon around a gas giant, where tides from the planet, to your point, could heat the moon up a lot, like Europa or Enceladus, creating an undersurface ocean. And then if you add minerals from the rocky core, you get everything you need from life, which is kind of neat, huh?
That is so cool.
Yeah. So thank you, Phil. And hopefully we'll be able to get you on a podcast with us one of these days. Yes, chef. Any mentions of chef or food? The food they had at the camp, the Dragons, which were not the sentient ones, plus Trip's cold milk. There was no mentions of chef, just some of the food stuff.
I have a huge chef update.
Oh, please tell us.
This will not be news to other Star Trek aficionados, but I literally just learned this like 2 days ago. Gang, I know who Chef is. I know who the cook for Star Trek Enterprise is, and it's a really cool story.
Okay, tell us.
And I suspect this is why we have so many food scenes on this show. All right. So when they were first producing Star Trek Enterprise, they had a lot of dinner scenes. And they were very unhappy with the quality of the food, both in terms of what it looked like and how it tasted. And then Star Trek veteran and Deep Space Nine scenic artist Doug Drexler had a recommendation, his wife, Dorothy Duder. And she came on as the on-set cook and also food designer for Star Trek Enterprise.
I love that.
Neat.
It's an amazing story because not only was her food so amazing that Dominic Keating, Malcolm, would blow takes because he was enjoying eating her food so much that she would have to make an extra portion to feed to him before they did takes.
That is incredible.
But later in the show, they also do, you know how like in original series, they will show you what space food looks like, and it's basically like Play-Doh creations?
Mm-hmm.
They'll do stuff like this on Enterprise, and she was able to create it not only so it looked like original series food, but it was edible.
Edible. Oh,
Wow.
how cool is that?
So she has sadly passed. She died in 2022. But her husband, Doug Drexler, used to have a WordPress blog called The Drex Files, which it's been taken over and now it's just nonsense spam. But yeah, I have several links to web archive files that include like specifically like some rib meal, and some of the pictures are missing because it's the web archive.
Yeah.
But there's actually a video outtake of Malcolm and Mayweather sitting there eating, and Malcolm blows a take because he's just enjoying it so much, and Mayweather goes,
I love that
says,
so much.
He says something like, "You dumbass," and there is literally like a PA who comes in with a new plate of fresh food to sit it down, anticipating that this was going to happen.
We know this is going to happen. Amazing.
Please send me those links. I would like to make
I
something.
will absolutely send you these.
And we can include them in the
show notes.
Show notes, yes. So this is now the segment of our show we like to call Will's Hollow Recs, where we give our Rikermendations for non-Enterprise related content we've been consuming in our holodecks this week. Jamie, what do you have for us today?
So I watched the movie Footloose for the first time.
Whoa.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I had never seen that movie. And let me tell you, it definitely holds up. Kevin Bacon is phenomenal. John Lithgow is just absolutely, he is so good. I was just surprised because I think like, I'm familiar with like the stereotypical evil preacher character who's like, just like silly in how much he hates something that other people think is reasonable. But I loved the way like John Lithgow imbued that character with so much heart.
Oh, yeah.
And I found myself like sympathizing with him. I was like, actually, I understand why he is the way he is.
Yeah,
like
his daughter died. Yeah.
Yeah, or I think it was his son.
Oh.
It was his son.
Okay.
But yeah, so the daughter is still alive. But it made me feel for that character so much. And then also, I was just genuinely surprised when a young Sarah Jessica Parker showed up. I had no idea that she was in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
I'd forgotten that. Yeah. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
One specific thing about this movie that I really loved is Kevin Bacon's character is, the whole movie he's coded as like extremely masculine. But one of the only things we know about him is that he's on the men's gymnastics team at his school. Like, there's a whole plot point where he gets kicked off the men's gymnastics team because he's causing too much trouble around town. And I just love that in 1984, the epitome of masculinity was men's gymnastics.
That's awesome.
And I honestly feel like we're kind of getting back to that with like this Olympics. We had that like one guy, the pommel horse guy with the glasses, Steven something.
Yep.
Hot straight man doing gymnastics. Love it. I just think we should get more hot straight men doing gymnastics. Yeah, so Footloose. Even if you haven't seen it before, watch Footloose. If you have seen it before, watch it again, because it's actually really good and holds up.
Watch it again with someone you love.
Okay, Bill, what do you have?
This is a recommendation, sorry, that I think maybe only Maria and I will love, but last episode or the episode... Well, this is going to be very specific. Last episode, or maybe the episode before, I recommended Would I Lie to You because it has David Mitchell on it, and this is David Mitchell has a new detective series on BBC. Actually, Jamie, you might like this because it is very monk adjacent.
I haven't seen Monk, but what you're saying is that my mother would like this.
Fair enough. Your mother might enjoy this. The show is called Ludwig. It stars David Mitchell, who is an abacadarian. He is a sheltered, sort of isolated man who creates crossword puzzles and enjoys lots and lots of puzzles. And he has a twin brother who is a police detective. His brother goes missing, and his brother's wife asks him to sneak into his office to get a notebook so that she can figure out what happened to her husband. And in doing so, this sheltered, reclusive, crossword puzzle creating man gets roped into murder cases, and wouldn't you know, he's great at solving them as if they are logic puzzles.
This show is made for me.
I was going to say, it sounds very Maria coded.
It is absolutely, and I adore David Mitchell. I love him. He's so good in everything he does. So, I need to find out more. Where are you watching it?
I'm literally watching it on the BBC.
On BBC. All right. It's 100% up my alley, and actually, is a very good segue into my recommendation. I love a cozy mystery. It is one of my favorite genres. I love the Midsummer Murders. I love all of those. Yeah. And my current obsession is a show called the Brokenwood Mysteries, which is set in a small town in New Zealand. So everybody has delightful accents and small town drama. It's exactly everything I want. The Brokenwood Mysteries. It's on, I believe, Acorn TV. So you do have to pay a little bit of extra subscription for it.
Sorry, right. Acorn TV?
Yeah, it's Acorn and BritBox are the two where you can get like British shows. Okay. Those are the two standard.
I'm familiar with BritBox, but I've never heard
Acorn's the other one.
Okay.
But yes, super fun. But yes, very cool. And that's the episode. Thanks for listening. Next episode, Bill will be watching the episode Acquisition. And I gotta say, I'm kind of jealous because I think we all know who shows up on this one.
Oh no.
Wait, what?
It's called Acquisition, Jamie.
It can't
Acquisition.
Be. It literally cannot be unless...
Acquisition!
It doesn't make sense, though.
I have seen the previews on Paramount Plus. Acquisition!
Okay. All right.
But it doesn't make sense.
And
humans meet Ferengi for the first time in Next Generation. They can't.
And yet...
all right, we're dealing with a series where literally in Discovery they say, hey, you know this spaceship that was a major part of the war against the Klingons? We're all going to agree never to talk about it ever again.
Yeah, so they do something happens, but the Ferengi are showing up, and Bill's going to tell us about it.
I almost feel like Jamie should take this since the Ferengi are clearly her favorite race in Star Trek.
Okay.
All right.
A very special thanks to Phil Plait, the bad astronomer, for replying to my stupid email about Star Trek almost immediately.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate it.
We will put a link to Phil's newsletter in the show notes. Sign up and you can get cool astronomy facts in your inbox to make up for what I'm sure are literally thousands of political donation requests that you're probably also getting right now, because I certainly am.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Every time I get one, I think of you, Jamie. Thanks also to K.R. Myers at Particulate Media for sound assistance, to our friend David for our beautiful cover art, and to John Stephen King for being the voice of our computer. Also, thanks to Steve Rickyberg, who's been helping out with editing, because I personally hate editing, and he's been helping when I need it. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast app of choice, and tell your friends about it. We really appreciate it. You can follow us on Instagram at EnterpriseSplaining and on Blue Sky at EnterpriseSplain. You can also email us any comments or questions, such as, can I skip this one? It sounds boring. The answer is yes. To enterprisesplaining@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. If you want to support this podcast, you can find us at Buy Me a Coffee as EnterpriseSplaining. And we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.
Computer and program.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.